Okay, we're gonna look at in this video, and I'm gonna hide myself. Actually, we're gonna look at the start looking at the opening of the war and how things start moving into that stalemate. And you'll watch the video and answer some questions on this particular video. There may be another integrated video within to play. So I'm gonna hide myself here and go with slideshow. Come on, from current slide. And we're going to start looking at the Central Powers and how the Central Powers were Germany, Austria-Hungary. These were the ones that were the triple alliance initially, and they merged into what's called the Central Powers: Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, Ottoman Empire. I told you the Ottoman Empire is getting fairly weak, and by mid-August of 1914, the battle lines are clearly drawn. Because their locations in the heart of Europe, they're known as the Central Powers. Together, in the hopes, and they were trying to regain lost territory. On the other side, Great Britain, France, Russia, together known as the Allied Powers. Also, in a lesser sense, Japan joins the Allies within weeks. Italy later joins. They had been members of the Triple Alliance, actually, but the Italians joined the other side after accusing their former partners of unjustly starting the war. So food, ammunition, fresh troops, mails, and orders were delivered through these trenches, which contained command posts, first aid stations, kitchens, latrines. Each trench in the war was dug in a zigzag, so many enemies could fire from no more than a few yards down its length. Okay, so the initial plan, called the Schliefen plan. Okay, and so named because Germany is facing war on two fronts. So they developed this battle plan. The designer Alfred Graf von Schlieffen. The plan calls for attacking and defeating France in the west, and then rushing east to fight Russia. So the Germans felt that they could carry out such a plan because Russia lagged behind the rest of Europe in its railroad system, and thus would take longer to supply the front lines. Nonetheless, the speed was vital in the Schlieffen plan. So let's attack here first. Let's attack here first, and then move into here. So Germany defeats France in 6 weeks, and then attacks Russia. Why does the plan fail? Well, Germany is met with strong resistance in Belgium, but by early September, the Germans, the Allies regroup and attack the Germans northeast of Paris in the valley of the Marne. Okay, so every available soldier was hurled into the struggle, and reinforcements were needed. More than 600 taxi cabs actually rushed soldiers from Paris to the front. After 4 days of fighting, the German generals gave the orders to retreat. So the other reason is that they were faced with strong resistance at the Battle of the Marne, but also Russia mobilized quicker than expected. So Germany had to abandon this particular plan. Okay, so here's what's going on in the trenches. The trenches are what caused this particular stalemate. So deadlocked, this stalemate is what ends up happening. This trench that doesn't move for very long. Both sides dug in, and they knew this conflict would turn to this long, deadly stalemate. And neither side is able to defeat each other. The battle lines would remain that way for almost 4 years. So trench warfare soon becomes this war of attrition. Trench warfare soon becomes this war of attrition as the battle lines don't move very much throughout the cause of the war. So there comes this war of attrition, wearing down the enemy by continual losses. And this grim name, the space between the opposing trenches, gains this grim name, no man's land. When an officer orders an attack, their men went over to the top of the trenches and into this bombed out landscape, and they're met with this murderous rounds of machine gun fire. But artillery fire also brought death right into the trenches. So the Western Front becomes this train of death, stretching almost 500 miles from the North Sea. Again, let me go back from the North Sea to the Swiss border. And there's brief video here.
On the Western Front, the German assault had finally failed, and soldiers on both sides had raced to dig an elaborate trench system that stretched for 300 miles, from the English Channel all the way to Switzerland. On New Year's Day in 1915, the young men who had gone off to fight glorious battles were now trapped in a desperate war of attrition.
Someone said to us excitedly, "Jack Smith." I said, "What about him?" "He's dead, he's been shot. The first one of the battalion to be shot." I said, "What?" "Yes, he's dead, he's been shot. He put his head too far over and a sniper got him." And that caused a bit of a sensation amongst the lads. They thought, well, this is not exactly what we come for, kind of business. But later on, from that day onwards, when we went to the trenches, it was 3 killed, 4 killed, 5 killed, 20 killed, 100 killed. By then, we was veterans.
A young American poet, Alan Seeger, was among those looking for adventure when he joined the Foreign Legion to fight for France. His diary reveals how seldom he found it.
"It's a miserable life, shivering in these wretched holes in the dirt. We're not leading the life of men at all, but that of animals, living in our holes in the ground, and only showing our heads outside to fight and to feed."
When we'd been there about 6 months, covered in mud, wet through practically all day, absolutely chewed up my lice, we used to say, and to think we wanted to come to this hole. I said, yes, we didn't know.
Every so often, one side or the other seized a few hundred yards of territory, only to be forced back again, surrendering what had cost hundreds of lives to win. The front never moved more than a mile or two in either direction. By the spring of 1915, the generals had concluded that the best way out of the stalemate was to blast the enemy out of their trenches. The same factories and assembly lines that had begun to contribute to life in the 20th century were now retooled to create massive killing machines. This was the industrialization of war.
There were just the splintered trunks of trees, and there's the quagmire of the shell holes, and no grass. It was just like a lunar landscape, really.
At night, the rats, they grew to enormous sizes, feeding on the corpses there. It was impossible to get the dead bird.
We put dead bodies in the bottom of the trench so that we could stand on them to keep dry. And on some occasion, dead bodies was put on the top of the trench to make it higher, so that we could walk a bit better instead of crouching.
And contributing to the stalemate were new weapons. By now, the machine gun had been perfected to the point that a single soldier could command as much firepower as 40 riflemen. The tank made it. Invented by the British to get...
So you get a little bit of an idea. And next time we'll start talking about some of the weapons. That's where I stopped. And you see why the war was a stalemate with the trenches. And the trenches were horrific places, and I wish we had more time to go into why the trenches were such horrific places. Unfortunately, we don't. Just know that they didn't move, and in this end up creating a stalemate, especially on the Western Front.